means to you, 'cause he truly wants to know. Never jaded, so complicated, oh no. He's a one-man show. And when he kisses me, I feel it so low. But when he writes it so low. And no one ever goes in the passenger side of his big black beautiful ride. He's a torture and a big old tease. He gets what he wants, he'll do as he pleases. And when he pleases you, he does it oh so slow. Oh, he's a one-man show.
Where are you, Johnny Nash? Oh, sorry. Ladies and gentlemen on YouTube, we'll be starting shortly. Okay. This is Ariana Savalas that you're listening to. I prefer her to Waypot. Alrighty. My guest is in the audience, Mr. Johnny Nash, and we will be bringing him up for his interview in just a few minutes.
In the movies, girl, you better pray you never caught in the guise of
we always wait a few minutes
black, beautiful
for the audience. I love that. For the audience to build here on Fireside. So we don't have the ability to do pre-pro in show, and so for the next few minutes, we will wait for the audience to arrive and enjoy Ariana Savalas' one-man show.
I feel it all so low. When he pleases me, oh, he does it oh so slow. He's a one-man show. He's a one-man show. He's a one-man show.
You bad boy. Alrighty then. Stand by. Let me bring my guest up. Am I to speak? Okay, Johnny, so you arrive with your mic open. Can you just put it on mute until I finish opening the show? Thank you. Well, I'd like to open this morning with I never do shows in the morning. Let me turn on my video. I'm going to get ready to start the show. People will be piling in shortly. I think we have a lot of fantastic shows going on right now here on Fireside. So, but I'm excited about my guest today, Johnny Nash, global. I call him the 007 of global executive recruiting. But stand by. Let me officially start the show. I think it's B first. Hey everyone, welcome to Cooper Time. This is your host, Wendy Cooper, and I am live here on Fireside with my guest today, Johnny Nash. But before I get to my guest, let me do some housekeeping. I want you to know that we do have this little thing I can play here.
Created live on Fireside.
I'm not sure you heard it too well, but let's see. I just want to make sure.
Created live on Fireside.
There we go. Yes. Got that housekeeping out of the way. Welcome to Cooper Time. It is a morning show. It's 9:30 here on the west coast of North America. I think. And my guest is in the UK. So, Cooper Time, let me just give you guys a little bit of a rundown. I'm going to put myself up here onto video. I do not think my guest wants to be on video, which is his prerogative, which is our prerogative here on Fireside. So anyway, let me cut to the chase. Today, my guest is Johnny Nash. He is part of what I would call Cooper Time. For me, it's called community, creative, and culture. And so I am able to, as you guys know, I do a lot of different shows. I do like the Future of Influence or the Future of Chocolate, or I do a fun music show where I highlight a musical guest, or I do a story view where I actually will interview somebody and try to sound design at the same time their fun little story that they have. And it's kind of fun. It's different. I am here. I'm here on Fireside because I love to produce audio content and be very creative. That's where I come from. Johnny Nash comes from, hey, yay, hey, Deanna, hey, Steph, thanks for joining the audience today. I was getting a little worried there. If you guys can do your sharing thing and all that, I have not really introduced Johnny yet. I don't know if anybody, let me tell you a little bit of a story before I do as the audience builds. Thank you. Clubhouse. So Clubhouse is social audio, and we all know, most of us know Clubhouse. Some of us have come from Clubhouse. Some of us have mixed feelings about Clubhouse. But one of the things that I found to be really beautiful about Clubhouse was Johnny, and I don't know because I don't go there that often anymore, but was Johnny Nash. And I always found Johnny's moderation, his topics, his life story, his passion for people, his passion to find, to just live the best life and give back to others. The conversations he evoked and the community, that he created there with his 37,000 followers on Clubhouse and social media. I know, has always used it for good. And this is why I love to, and I'm honored to feature him. I'm going to welcome him now. And Johnny, you can come off mute. So Johnny Nash, the 007 of executive recruiting. I like to say that. Welcome to Cooper Time. And welcome to the show. And next time you're here, you're going to come on video.
Yeah. Thank you ever so much, Wendy, for the introduction. And I'm really impressed, I must say, that the whole opening and the way you do this, especially coming from Clubhouse, this is like completely different, isn't it?
Yeah. This is Johnny's first time here. And you also, so Johnny, you do a lot of LinkedIn Live. You're probably feeding this to other social media live streams right now, as I am to my YouTube channel. And yes, it's like having your own talk show. It really is. And Steph has a show, Stephanie, who is in the audience. Deanna, who is in the audience, is a creator. She has a show. We share a co-host a show on our Dep Heard thing also. And it's just so flexible. So let's get to you, and we can stop praising Fireside. I want you to tell everybody about, you come from a very interesting background. Let's cover that first. Your childhood, the war zone, your challenges of, coming from you came from the Emirates, right? Into the UK.
Iran.
Iran.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for that, Wendy, and I really appreciate you inviting me on your show. And I always found you, incredible whenever you were in the rooms on Clubhouse and stuff. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Johnny Nash. I left the Iran-Iraq war, came to the UK, couldn't speak a word of English, and suffered from an eye defect, which meant that when I glanced to my left, and I didn't even realize it was to my left because I was so conscious of it so much later down in life, that it made me super conscious, not even wanted to put my hand up in class, not even wanted to put myself front and center for anything, because it's human nature to glance, isn't it? And that created a terrible weakness, my inability to want to socialize, And that weakness turned into a super strength, a superpower, which was my ability to read people, their verbals and non-verbals. And I did it to survive because I was constrained in just making sure to make up for the weakness that I had, especially in my head about my eye defect. And that then enabled me to take that superpower into the world of recruitment and careers for over 25 years, where I've become in the top 1% of global headhunters, placed over 3,000 people globally. I'm an accountability coach as well. I do a lot on the career side of things, A to Z on the career aspect, as well as mindset, emotional intelligence, resilience, how to overcome adversity, because I've come through adversity after that adversity in both my personal life and my professional life. And I love all things social audio, where we've got the largest club on Clubhouse for recruitment and careers. We also do a lot on LinkedIn social audio. I'm one of 500 beta testers out of 810 million users on that platform. LinkedIn, obviously, if you've ever looked for a job, most people would have heard of LinkedIn, especially in the professional space. They've opened up now, little by little. They're still in beta on social audio and also on Twitter Spaces, where I've done some stuff on there and shows on top of that, because for me, it's been about creating a whole social audio experience.
Yeah, so let me back up a little bit. 25 years global recruiting, executive recruiting, about as long as I pretty much have been accidentally an entrepreneur. I uh, I I admire the fact that you're able to, you really have to, as a career coach, as an executive recruiter, you really have to know human nature. You really have to know when something is a true fit, right? For the position, for the value that it's bringing, just for happiness in the workplace. I assume. I'm curious because we only have a short amount of time. I'm really curious about what you think, because you have so much experience dealing with humans and their careers, more than anybody I've ever met, and you have such a connection to the human spirit that it might seem like an odd question, but what do you really see as the future of the Great Resignation? Right? What is it? I call it. I mean, what do you see? How do you see that affecting real jobs, fake jobs that people think are real jobs because they're working from home and they're doing all of that? What is your feeling about the Great Resignation? And because I believe it's everywhere. It's not just in the U.S. It's globally, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. And I've done some rooms on this because it's been a prevailing thing across both the United States and the UK. And what it is, the pandemic caused a lot of nastiness and death, and people lost loved ones and businesses and even their homes. But one of the consequences of the pandemic, which was a positive, it allowed us time to think. Because if you live in any major city, London, New York, whatever it might be, you're going at a million miles per hour, and one day goes into the next, 1 week goes into the next. Before you know it, the year's over with, right? Especially as you grow older, folks.
Exactly. It's like they all blend
Yeah,
together.
absolutely. I always measure a week how fast I put the bins out from Monday to Sunday.
Me too, Johnny. Me too. It's Sunday
And,
again.
living the dream. So it allowed people to breathe and think and reassess what they really want. And what's happening now is that, along with tech, which is the advancement of AI and automation, is going to replace about 40% of all jobs in the next 5 to 7 years. And you're going to have what's called your super jobbers, and those who are going to be automated away. See, there's an issue about a universal basic income for those individuals. And then those other people that need to find new skill sets. So what does this mean for the traditional employee model that I've grown up with, you've grown up with, most of us have grown up with? It means that the traditional employee model is dying, and it's been hastened since the pandemic, and it ties in with the Great Resignation because you're either going to be an intrapreneur or an entrepreneur. So what people have said to themselves is, if my work doesn't emancipate me, doesn't carry on with remote working, doesn't give me flexi hours, doesn't recognize me, doesn't make me more of a fabric, either as an entrepreneur within that company, then I'm going to reassess. I'm going, and when those companies haven't fulfilled those areas, it's made individuals to think, you know what, I'm going to move on, or it's made them realize they've been involved in toxic work environments, didn't have good enough work-life balance. So they've wanted to then change that because they've enjoyed family time, being at home more, having a bit of a more balance, and it's actually been more productive for people instead of wasting their time traveling. So they've resigned, looked for other jobs, and it's creating a market where it's a candidate-driven market. It's a war for talent. It's never been a better time to be a candidate. So a candidate now is reassessing options due to the values they have, the environment of the place of work, financials, or they're actually thinking, you know what, I'm going to go it alone and I'm going to go the entrepreneurial route as a solopreneur, micro entrepreneur, start up my own thing. So this is all of the stuff that ties in with the Great Resignation. People either going out their own way or they're moving for different opportunities because they've realized what they want more out of life than what they had.
Sorry, I was muted. 1000%. There's no such thing, by the way, you guys. I did not have an algebra class, but I know there's no such thing as 1000%. 100%. But here's where my concern comes in, is I know as a accidental entrepreneur, I know the struggles that I've had, and a very successful one, by the way, for 20 something years, but I accidentally fell into it. And so therefore it wasn't me intentionally going out and becoming an entrepreneur, me going out intentionally thinking I can do a tech startup, a fintech, a martech, an ad tech, this tech, that tech. I don't care. It was survival and other things. Okay. What is going to happen? What's your prediction on what is going to happen to the people who say, okay, I want to be that entrepreneur. I want to go out there and I'm just going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to be a coach. I'm going to be a this. I'm going to be a that. I'm going to be a content creator. And I'm going to make my money my way, my own way. The complexities in that for the future are, there is no, and I have experienced this now. I'm older. I was an entrepreneur. I wasn't putting money into a 401k. I was thinking, hell, it's just going to keep flowing in, right? And it doesn't. You get older, things change, sorry. And so I fear that in about 5 years, 10 years, there's just going to be this weird influx of people going, ooh, I really kind of wish I had stayed in the workplace because I didn't realize being an entrepreneur was so darn difficult. And now here I am, and I have basically, I didn't plan for my financial retirement like a corporate job basically actually does kind of for you. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's really good points. And people do become an entrepreneur by accident, or when times are difficult. It's not always consciously.
That was me.
Yeah. So when I started my own company in 2012, in 2010, it was brought out of a crisis back in Dubai, actually. So I started in Dubai in 2008, brought it back to the UK in 2010. And because my back was to the wall. And sometimes when you've got nothing to lose, you go and be brave and go down the entrepreneurial route and back yourself rather than the perceived safety of a salary. But people don't realize that with entrepreneurialism, there comes a lot of pain because most entrepreneurs, 94% of entrepreneurs never even hit six figures. 94%.
Mm-hmm.
Only 2%, Wendy, ever hit seven figures. Mm-hmm. And 9 out of 10 startups fail within the first 10 years. 50% of them fail within the first 3 years. But what we're brainwashed with in the media or social media is Elon Musk Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson, all these kind of figures that have done stupendously well. And there's many great aspects of entrepreneurship. There really is. But people don't realize all the hard work, pressure, especially if you're the only breadwinner in your household, and all the responsibility. It's constant. They think, it must be great being an entrepreneur. You can do what you like and everything else. Yes, you can do to a certain degree, but it depends if you want a lifestyle business or you want to grow something and make it a proper company.
Yeah, Deanna has a question. She's in the audience and she has a question, and she wanted to know: is the corporate route really the only route for financial security in the future?
No, and it will not. It will. If you're just, I think Warren Buffett said this. If you're just relying on your salary, you're one step away from poverty.
Mm-hmm.
Just think about that. We are
especially if Johnny Nash didn't negotiate that for you.
Yeah, because we're in the era now where we have to get multiple streams of income. I really do believe that. So even if you have a salary, it goes back to that entrepreneur model that I was talking about with the traditional employee model dying, that you need to then utilize that salary, maybe then go into real estate, maybe go into stocks and shares, have a portfolio of things or passive streams of income, because you've got to have multiple streams of income. It's very, very dangerous. Most people are only 2 or 3 paychecks away from wall still.
It's I'm 67, and Deanna will tell you I say that in every freaking show I do. I don't know why, but I do. Everybody tells me, shut up, da, 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 da. But I say that only because I have these life experiences that also include aging, right? And the inclusivity, diversity, DEI, or however you call it, that it always says that it includes age, people of age. We're all inclusive, but ageism is very difficult on people now just over 45, right? Of being eliminated from the workforce or not being looked at. Now, prior to the pandemic, Johnny, this was an issue. During the pandemic, I have no idea what happened. Now we're at a place where value is key. Okay, here's what I really want to ask. I'm going to get rid of that age question because this is what's important. How does one define their value and put that price? How do you do that for someone? It's like, how do you define the value that they have now that it is the employee's market, right? If this is a question that people have, because some people will say, well, there's that one person out there that's going to pay you what you're worth, but most people do not even know how to determine what they're worth.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit like, what's the price of your house? Most people think their house is more than what the actual market will pay for it. Something's only worth something what the market's prepared to pay for it. And when it comes to what you're worth, is too many people have self-limiting beliefs. So because of that mindset, they then don't actually fully realize their potential and their worth within the market, because they feel, if I ask for that, don't think I'm quite that senior enough or that good enough. But folks, there's never been a better time, because it's crazy right now, especially in the world of tech. It's candidates are getting. I just dealt with one candidate that basically doubled her salary, plus a sign-on bonus on top, plus sales revenue share of a blockchain company. So it depends on the sector. In the tech sector, in the blockchain, fintech sector, these areas is absolutely smoking in terms of a war for talent, candidate-driven market. Other sectors may not be quite like that as much, but definitely in the ICT sector, it's operating on that basis. And what happens is, when it's a candidate-driven market, salaries and financial packages, they go up, because most companies are fishing from the same pool, because they want the best in class. They want the top 1 or 2% of candidates. So they're all fighting for the same type of candidates. And then that raises the premium, like in any market. Whereas in the pandemic, when it started, it was a client market, not a candidate-driven market. And everybody was worried, one, first of all, is this virus going to kill us all? Secondly, they were just happy to have a job, and all these government schemes of furlough and etc. that came into play, and there wasn't much jobs around. Since the vaccinations, it's completely exploded because there's been such pent-up demand. So it's been flipped on its head, and it's a total candidate-driven market.
What does I mute my microphone because there's a lawnmower going in the background. What does that mean, though? I mean, it's like, how long will that last? How long can that possibly last? I can't remember the last time when it was something like this. I have a couple of questions that you can address. I'll just shoot them at you right now. So my first show here on Fireside, it was called Where's the Beef? Tech versus Creative. It was a serious show about tech startup. And the failure rate and fail fast mentality, and why they don't, understand how to find their first customer, kind of like my thing. And it always boiled down to the fact that they get all of this money, these tech startups, they get millions of dollars, they do their first round, their seed, or their proof of concept, their seed, their second, and they hire very expensive people to develop the app, whatever it might be. And then when it comes down to it, they forget about marketing and bringing in that customer, and then really what it takes to grow and sustain, a viable business. And they fail, but they're encouraged to fail fast, because failing fast is like this thing that you do in tech, because that one unicorn, same place I came from in the infomercial world, that one unicorn is going to pop up, and it's going to make everybody shine and lots and lots and lots of money, which is not true. It only makes a certain amount of people a lot of money. But to your point, and what you were saying about, this gal doubled her salary. Fantastic. Kudos to her. But how long and these packages are amazing with these tech companies, but they also fail fast. So, someone comes along and they can make more money in a tech startup with a nice package, or they can go in and make a similar compensation with like a Goldman Sachs or something that's been, I don't even know if they're around anymore, but with a company that has been around for a long time and has stability, right? How would you handle that situation? Because I see tech startups as being a 2-year gig, and then hoping it maybe goes further, because they usually run out of money.
It's an interesting question. It really depends on where you're at in your career and the type of personality you have. So if, for example, you've done the corporate game and you've been doing it for over 10 years or more, for example, then you reach a point in your life with your career and you think, you know what, if I go to another big company, it's the same thing, just different name on the door, and I'm just a number on a spreadsheet. I want to challenge myself. I want to work for a disruptor, a startup. And then they look into what the mission is, what the values are, and is there any equity, is there any stake they will get, depending on their level, depending on their niche. And they want to have that environment where they feel like they're making a difference in terms of their work, rather than these enormous pyramid structures where it's more of a caretaker, enhancer type role rather than a change maker. So if you want to be a change maker, then you're going to go more down the disruptor startup route. And as well, if you want to feel that fire in your belly and all hands on deck and it's a bit crazy, then you're going to look at the startup side. Though the days of having a job for life in the private sector are gone.
Yeah, I agree.
Gone. If you're in the private sector, that's different in terms of if you're a police person or in civil service, but private sector is gone. So most people are going to make changes, and it's getting shorter and shorter, Wendy.
It's like the average is 2 years, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy because recently, Johnny, I had someone probably over 50 or something like this. I've never had a resume in my life, by the way, which is an obstacle for me because I don't have a resume. I have a resume of and a portfolio, right, of clients, but I don't have an actual resume. But she she was looking at someone's resume is what it was, and she said, "Oh my God, this person's only been at this job for a year and a half, and then the last job was only 2 years, and the what? This is they have no longevity in their job." And I said, "But that's the thing, and that's okay. It's that's the current status of um, how it goes, right? 2 years is okay. Learn, move on. Learn, move on. People don't care. Companies, do they care anymore? They don't really, because nobody's looking for a job for life.
Within reason.
Okay.
So if someone leaves 6 months, 1 year, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years,
Red
right?
flag.
Then it's a red flag that what's going on here, especially if they're permanent. If they're contract, no, that's absolutely fine. That's
Yeah, if they're
well,
gig work like me, I do like a year,
yeah,
6 months. Yeah.
yeah, consulting, freelancing,
Mhm.
there's no looking at that twice. But it's getting shorter. So once upon a time when I first started, people would look at more, need to have 4 to 5 years. And that was 25 years ago. Now it's like, well, at least they should have 2 years. It's because of the continuous changes. And I think this is the way it's going to go, where people are going to just move positions if you're a good candidate, every 2 to 3 years. If there's something more in it for you, where you've got skin in the game, and you're looking for an exit, then you might stay longer. Or if you're still chasing corporate America or something like that, you might still end up in doing a role for 5 years plus. But the younger the generations, they're looking for more dynamic job market, and they're moving more. And I think people's whole mindset with this all has completely changed to when I grew up and how it was. So yeah, it's gone short.
Well, yeah, because the people who are hiring are the age of my youngest son, right? Here's a question. So culture has changed. All of that has changed, which is awesome, because if we didn't have change in the world, we would be stagnant and kind of like a bunch of people living in homes with wearing masks when they go outside because they're so afraid of everything that's happening in the world. So we need change. We need things to progress, and we need diversity, and we need creativity. But uh, what do you say to the person who wants to be in the corporate space, who really loves, I thrive. I've worked from home for 20 something years, right? I crew up when I'm producing, I do whatever, but I've always worked from home. But a few times I've had clients where I've had to go every 2 weeks, spend 2 weeks there in-house, or I was in-house consultant, but I was in-house. Those were the gigs that I loved. And I love them, Johnny, because I wanted the interaction with people. I wanted to be reminded of what it was like to really work physically as a team. It was so inspiring and aspiring for other people, for me to be able to stand in front of that conference table and really rah everybody in the morning and get them set for the day, give them direction, make it a real team. I don't think Zoom works like that. And I could be wrong, but for the people who really thrive in that environment, do you have any, advice in 2022 going into 2023? Is it more suited for people like myself who maybe understand that work ethic, understand that they do want to leave the house, they do want to have a commute, they do want to go into an office, they do want to have somebody else pay for the pencils, the pens, all of that stuff, and yet there's this huge demand for younger workforce. But don't you think maybe the older workforce, who doesn't have kids, who don't have to worry about paying for child care and being home with the kids, and all that's all past them, but they're vibrant and they are intelligent? What advice do you give to them? How do they find their worth in this really changing environment of now maybe they actually can get out there and fill some of those empty seats in the corporate space? Is that possible?
It's a good question. I would say to anybody, don't be, working for a corporate is a good thing. You learn so many great skills and
Right.
processes, and it's great to have the badge on your CV, especially when you start out, and then you can move into startup. Some people will go straight into startup because they're a bit of a maverick. Maybe they've got university friends. They're like a bit like how Google came about out of Stanford and all these kind of tech entrepreneurs, and then they want to conquer the world and they want to go straight into it. Whatever floats your boat. But there's nothing wrong with going into corporate. There's a lot right about going to corporate, and then you can move out a bit into your own business or move into a startup or a disruptor. The problem that we have is one of the last taboos that people still do, unfortunately and regrettably, is ageism.
Yes.
And it's a real thing, and what they won't come out with it directly, they'll come out with it indirectly. Oh, too senior.
Not a cultural fit.
Doesn't fit the culture. We're dynamic here, so they'll say it in other ways to you. But if you're over 50 and you say, for example, fallen on hard times, you maybe made redundant, and then you haven't paid off your mortgage, you're not financially stable, secure enough to say, you know what, stuff this, I'm off now, I'm out.
Who is at 50? 50 is so young as far as
I
I'm
know.
concerned.
And if you're not, then that's going to be a real problem, because what happens is that unless you are at C level or MD level in terms of seniority, so you want to be at least, VP, senior VP, director level, and MD level and beyond. If you haven't hit those heights yet properly, a proper meaty role, MD level, C level role, which tends to be older, and that's fine. Well, I mean, the only exception is in the tech world, which is completely the other way. But generally speaking, in the corporate world, that's fine, because you can move from one company to the next and everything else. And you're very financially stable anyway, because you get big packages and everything else. So the pressure's off. I'm talking maybe about people like a sales director, right? That has the title of sales director, but they're not actually a director. They don't have actual equity. That is more of a title than anything else. They're being made redundant for whatever reason. They're not getting the next position. It's 2 months, 3 months, 6 months go by. Then they start applying for roles that are like sales manager.
Yeah.
Because they get desperate.
Yeah.
And it's a vicious cycle, unfortunately. But ageism is a real thing.
Average of so a few years ago, I started my other podcast, the Wendy Cooper Show, Conversations with Remarkable People Over 50, and it really brought to light this kind of problem. One of my first interviews was with John Tarnoff, who wrote the book Reinvention After 50 or something like this, and I would argue with people about certain things, but then I learned more and more, and then I started realizing that, and this is before the pandemic, right? And so things did have changed a bit, but it's such a problem. It is such a huge problem that we're living to be 100 years old, yet it's not working. They're not using the metrics right. So if we're living to be 100 years old on average, let's say, right, when you get to 45, 50, you should not be like ready for retirement. You should, that's kind of like you're really 20. If 40 is 60 is the new 40. And then I always say, 7 is the new 27. And that answers all of our problems. But this is such I think it's such ageism is such a huge thing. It is bigger, and it's very much talked about on LinkedIn a lot. There's a big conversation there because there are so many talented people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, especially in the creative space, right? Which seems as though the creatives get pushed out, directors of photography, produce things like this, because all of a sudden they're not creative anymore because they're over 50. I mean, where does this mentality come from? We lose everything, all the wisdom that we have and everything that we have to give, the value we really have to bring people and companies, and it's completely ignored the older you get. We're not technologically savvy. What the heck does that mean? Johnny?
No, you're absolutely right. And to be honest with you, I have conversations with peers and other people about this, and I think at least with America, you have 2 presidents that have been in their 70s, right? Latter 70s. With Biden, I think it's what, 76 or
something, I
78?
don't know.
Yeah, 78. In the UK, you wouldn't get that. We're really bad, right? It's like in the UK and it's changing now with technology and how people are aging and things like that. But it's overcoming these preconceptions that's always been that people write you off after a certain age. But
Right.
now, because of everything that we're seeing in terms of people living longer, like I said, people looking after themselves more, we're in a different kind of era. Technology is facilitating this, whether it's in med tech or
We're in a
anti-aging stuff.
longevity culture with
Yeah,
with
longevity
technology.
culture. Yeah. So that's changing a lot of the mindset, and you just need. I think in the seniority levels, very very senior levels, it's okay. It's fine. At C level, board level, or president level. But where the real pain is, and where the biggest problem is that mid to senior level of people who are above a certain age that have so many great things on offer, and because they're judged by their age rather than what they can bring, is causing a real disconnect. And what I argue for is to have blind applications, so that people don't judge a person by its age or anything like that. Just interview the person based on what they have, and then make your mind up, because some of these individuals are much more, they bring so much more value to your company than someone who's perceived to be young and dynamic, who can be quite flaky at times and leave left, right, and center. So don't judge a person by its age, judge them for what they are and what they can bring.
And does that work?
No, a lot of the times. And that's why I advise clients, because the problem is a lot of tokenism.
Yeah.
You know, this is the problem with many things. We have to cut out the fluff and the sugar coating and the mission statements, and judge people more in terms of actions. And we've come a long way with diversity and inclusion, but we're no way near where we should be with ageism.
No,
There
we're
should be
not.
an ageism representative, like diversity and inclusion. There should be as well on the ageism side of things within organizations, instead of sugarcoating it and paying lip service to it.
Okay, so I'm 100% on board with you on that, and I've tried to talk about it in kind of in the past. I think I've mentioned it a couple of times in your rooms on Clubhouse or whatever. But yeah, I feel as though it's a big concern, and what I find is that a lot of people, like you started to say, they reduce down their value because they're afraid they're not going to be able to find the job. The average length of time for someone over 50 to find a new job in the pre-pandemic market was 3 years. And that is a long time to go without a job. And these are people coming from the corporate space. So this is what I learned, and I thought was some really great advice, is that while you're still, as you're getting older and you have that great corporate job and the 401k and everything, all the bells and whistles that go with it, start looking for your next purpose. Start to plan for that while you're still in that job, so that you do have the money saved, the plan in place, if you do want to go off and do your own thing, or if you are laid off because of your age, which happens a lot. And then so you have a backup. So you're taking care of that while you're still working. I always thought was really great advice. I don't want to take up too much of your time, Johnny, but I'm going to keep you until I get everything out of you. No, I'm kidding. Okay. So in the audience, we have Dale, Bad Bunny, and Deanna. And I was wondering, I can't see, is it just Waitbot that's over there? Yeah, it's Waity. Do you guys have any questions? Would you like to hop up on stage, get into some engagement conversation here with Johnny Nash, and ask some questions? Because it's really hard for me to look at the bubbles, the lights, the talk, the push, the press, and do all of that production stuff at the same time. So, Deanna, yes, I knew you would come up. Welcome. Hi, Deanna. So
Hey.
let me introduce you to Johnny. Johnny,
Okay.
Deanna has a show here, and her show is called Laughter After, right? And it's kind of the laughter after the trauma. So she is a life coach, a trauma coach, and so she's awesome. She's also the co-host of our Deppard Heard trial. But Deanna, shoot, ask Johnny anything.
Yeah. So I find this fascinating. I've never lived in the recruiting type of world because I've pretty much worked for myself since I was. Oh, you okay?
I pushed the wrong
Since
button. I'm sorry.
oh, since I don't know, I was in my 20s. So, um, I kind of went off on my own, did my own, accounting business, which was just, I never went into it to build it to be anything great. It was just a means to an end. Now I'm 53 and I'm going, well, A, I want more than a means to an end, but B, I have like this massive purpose behind what I'm trying to accomplish here with the Laughed After Trauma, getting people out there, becoming a six-figure giver, being able to fund programs that I think don't exist right now. There's all kinds of stuff. So that being said, and feeling like Wendy said, okay, I'm late in the game, there's ageism, but yet still it's like, halftime, more or less. And so I guess the question is, like, I know there is a certain security in having quote unquote that corporate job that comes with the bells and whistles, but you're talking about how that's going away. Is there a divide or is there a place in between? Like, I really want to transition out of some of my other job, but I guess I haven't figured out the way to make that happen. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how people are doing it, I guess is the real question. And that you seem to be able to recruit people into doing it. So.
Really good to meet you, Dina. Yeah, I mean, there is, and this is a question a lot of people say about career pivots, or they're looking to transition, and it's about choosing the right companies. But before you choose the right company, I always say make sure you choose the right boss, because a great boss can take you very far, and a not so great boss can do quite the opposite. And you can find companies that not that at the startup stage, you can find maybe companies that are at a mature scale up, or they've become a unicorn stage. So they have gone through pulling out the weeds at the beginning of a startup. They've gone through several rounds of funding. They're now a growing scale up company. They've become more mature. So they're not quite corporate, but they're on the road to be the next unicorn company. So you could try those type of outfits.
I think, Deanna, is what you're asking is how do you find the balance between figuring out at 53 years old? So you've got your entrepreneurial endeavors, right? And then you have your vision of what you want to accomplish in your life. And at 53, we start to think about our lifespan. All right. And what we do want to accomplish in our life. And that's another motivator for career pivots and different transitions. I think the big question, and I think what Deanna is really trying to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my thing that I've done all of my career is help bring products to market. And I always say everyone is a product. Everyone needs marketing to succeed. Whether you're a brand, whether you're a person, place, or service, we all need that. And we all need to understand what that means. And bringing your passion to market is really how I would surmise these 100% entrepreneurs that believe that I have this burning passion inside of me, no matter what age they are, and I'm going to find a way to bring that to market. Well, what happens, even with tech startups, right, is when it gets to the marketing part of it, it's like a black hole for most people, and the guidance becomes blurred because there's so many people offering help. I'll do your Pinterest for you. I'll do your Instagram for you. I'll do this. I'll do that. You have to do this. You have to post all the time. There's so much noise coming at you that you really don't know what to do, where to turn, or what to do. And this confuses the new entrepreneur who does want to launch and grow a business not a tech startup, but just your own business. And so understanding the foundations, the fundamentals of really what it takes to bring anything to market from concept to consumer is extremely important before you even think about doing a career pivot. This is kind of my point. It's like, it's not easy, right, Johnny? I mean, it is really not easy.
No, and that's why a good coach comes into play, because then you work with the individual, find out what your why is, what your driver is, where you're at, what's going on, what really makes you tick, and actually start to get you to really question what you want. Because sometimes we think one thing, and then when we go deep, we actually realize, actually, I don't really want that. I'm more suited to this and I'm more suited to that. And it might be the situation where if there's no market, you have to create your own market. It's as
That's
simple as that.
and that is, and that's yes, because if there is no market, number one, if there is no market for the services that you want to bring, then there's probably a reason for that. If there is a very big competitive market, let's say just in general coaching, because there's so many different verticals that you can go into in coaching, and so many different levels, that is an indicator that it is someplace you want to go. Don't always, my advice would be, don't see competition always as a bad thing. No competition in my book is a bad thing.
Yeah, well, so you're right on with where I was going with that, Wendy, and I guess so for me with this pivoting, is I'm shifting into a completely new arena. Now I've been coaching for a while, but my financial accounting's been for 30 something years. So but they're two very different beasts, you know, and and it's easy to bring financial accounting it's easy for me to sell myself in that because you're talking to companies and everybody needs it. Everybody needs it. Any company needs it. There's no getting out of it. So it's fine. But when you're talking about trauma life coaching, I still think pretty much everybody needs it, but not everybody recognizes that need. And, so it's like, and I feel like, whew, you know, it's like you said, Wendy, it's overwhelming. And when you're transitioning, it's difficult to have the means to pay a coach. If I had somebody who just laid it out and gave me the strategy and I could just follow it, step one, step two, man, that would be amazing because I got the coaching part. You know what I mean?
Johnny, what do you think of that? Because there are actually programs out there that you can pay to go through, all of that. But what I find is that they're not tailored. What what Johnny is saying is let's even find out, like Deanna, what I'm hearing, and Johnny, I would love for you to chime in on this from what Deanna said. I'm hearing a couple of things from you. I have this expertise that I probably, in today's job market, the financial expertise that you have for all these years, probably could, I don't know, Johnny, you can answer this, find a better, higher paying job that you might make you happier in that arena where you're making the dough that you feel you would make you happy. And then meanwhile, you have this passion for because of your background and everything that you do for your coaching. It doesn't matter if it's coaching or if it's a toilet stool, right? Or I don't know, a set of new pens. It doesn't matter. It's the marketing that is so difficult, and bringing your audience in. Ask any podcaster, ask anyone. That's the most difficult thing, and you should do that little by little by little, and not expect this huge result. You need to have patience. You're just like building any business. The other thing, real quick, and then I'll go to Johnny, is Deanna, I heard you say something about there's no charity or cause that talks about, what your real passion is, that you would like to create or something like that. I've never heard you talk about that before. But that is something that is a movement, right? So when you want to create a cause, or you want to create this cause, that's even bigger than bringing a product to market. So that's all strategy and tactics. But anyway, Johnny, what are your thoughts? Am I going off rails here?
No, you make some really good points. I'll finish with this share because I do have to leave in the next few minutes, Wendy. But I think with a lot of this, you need to have, first of all, the hardest conversation you have in life is with yourself. And you have to, you should never bluff your own self. And it's important to then break down. And that's what I do with my clients. So when it comes to coaching, I coach people who are entrepreneurs, micro entrepreneurs, people who are stuck, getting them from stuck to unstuck. And then the first initial session is to establish the facts and ask some really good questions about what's going on in your professional life, what's happening today, what's going on with your business, where are you stuck? Because you need to first have the information and the data, and then you advise, like yourself, Dina, where it might be an issue about position A or position B or position C. And you might have a million one ideas where you feel like, oh, maybe I want to have a job today, or actually I want to go back to being an entrepreneur, or actually I want to do this, or actually I want to do that. And you end up doing none of the above, because this is what happens. You get a sense of overwhelmed, and overwhelm actually then restricts your productivity, and then productivity then means that you don't get the results that you want. And then what happens is you're in a vicious cycle, and then you're not fulfilling your potential, and you get frustrated. So it's important to dig down, understand where you're at, and then there's always a solution, but sometimes the solution might be staring us in the face, but we haven't quite seen it yet, and it takes someone else to look at it. But I'll end on that point.
Thank you, Johnny. First, before you go, because it sounds like you got to go. Can you tell everybody where to find you, your website and things like that? It's really difficult for us to put that in this little fortune cookie thing here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Wendy. And I love the whole feel of this fireside, first time on it, and your show, the way you've done it is amazing. I love the music as well. And you're such a good community builder. People can find me on LinkedIn, Johnny Nash on LinkedIn. They can find me at Johnny Nash, johnny@johnnynash.coach. So www.johnnynash.coach. My email is johnny@johnnynash.coach.
Are you still doing the rooms like you were
Clubhouse?
on Clubhouse?
Yeah, I do that regularly, at least once a week as well. So you can find me on Clubhouse. You can find me so Johnny Nash on Clubhouse, Johnny Nash on Instagram. You can find me Johnny Nash on LinkedIn, and also my coaching website, www.johnnynash.coach. But thank you very much, Wendy, for having me.
Thank you, Johnny. Thank you for being here. If you have to go, you just jump on down and leave the show. I'm going to stick around for a couple of minutes and talk about what's coming up. You're more than welcome. Let's give a big hand for Johnny, who just disappeared. Yay! Does anybody want to... Before I close out the show and I go back to listening to the court trials for tonight's show, Bad Bunny, Dale, Deanna, did you want to come up and make any type of comment regarding what the show was just all about?
Yeah, I think one thing is when it comes to, where do you, because he's a job recruiter, right? Is that what he does?
He's an global executive recruiter and a coach. And so he's for 23 years, right? He comes from a war zone. He has a really diverse background as having some challenges in his younger life, overcoming those challenges, and blah blah blah. Yeah, so he's more.
He seems fairly young. He seems fairly young for but what you said about people retiring at 45 and stuff, I don't think that's a realistic life. My parents said retirement would be the death of them.
Right, exactly. That's actually the point, is that it isn't realistic, but the companies, people who hire people, or the society, looks at.
They're not hiring anybody over 60.
They're not hiring anybody over 45, Bad Bunny.
Oh, is that what's going on?
Yes. So ageism is when it's an ism that affects any age group, but it's when you collectively take a certain age group and assume they're all the same, right?
And we were talking about age groups because we were under the impression that, oh, this application has people from us, older and stuff. And I'm like, where? That's not what I see at all.
Well, Deanna's in the audience. She's 53. Dale's in the audience. He's my age. I'm 67. I think you're the only young one I see.
and oh boy.
I mean, where are you getting your information?
I told you where this application was marketed at. It was marketed on this like cartoon show.
Okay, you know what we need to do? We're all creators. Let's jump into the green room and have a conversation.
Yeah. Let's close this out.
Thank you, Bad Bunny. Let me close my show out.
Yes.
Okay, and because it is being simulcast to YouTube, and probably Johnny is doing the same thing. So I want to thank my guest, Johnny Nash, today, who is the director and founder of Fort ICT. He is, you can find him, like he said, on Clubhouse. He is an amazing human being. And this is why I love to have him on Cooper Time. Please look into Johnny's background and everything that he has to offer. And for now, I'm going to say this was
Created Live on Fireside.
And I'm out of here with my music. Thanks, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I will see you tonight on